Today we'll be reviewing the case of the Indonesian black magic serial killer, a cattle breeder turned self-proclaimed shaman that went on a peculiar and disturbing quest. A quest to drink the saliva of 70 dead women. Hey, it's Genevia and welcome to Mystery Digest, where every Sunday I cover true crime cases, paranormal cases, and other mystery-related content. Today we'll be covering the case of an Indonesian black magic serial killer, a man with a strange motivation to kill and an even stranger MO, a cattle breeder named Ahmad Suradji. We'll be following the chain of events that started Ahmad's 11-year killing spree, viewing his killings in deeper detail and finding out why he drank the saliva of the women he murdered. Ahmad was born January 10, 1949 in Medan, Indonesia. His father was also a self-proclaimed sorcerer, hence where he developed his strong fascination with black magic and the social powers it yields. He was often in his father's shadow, as his father was praised and respected for the services he provided for the community. It was said that as a result, Ahmad was neglected, as his parents would prioritize his father's work over his well-being. Ahmad was regarded as one of the strange kids in his childhood. He didn't do too well in school and had trouble making friends. That often led to him doing his own thing unsupervised. That proved to be a catalyst as he soon started his life of crime. He committed a string of petty crimes which led to him spending 10 years behind bars at just the age of 19. And not even 2 years following his release, he was back in jail for cattle theft. The crimes he committed up until this point were all related to petty crimes and theft, and he racked up quite the reputation in his community. He was thought of as a troublemaker and didn't contribute much to the well-being of the community. He soon grew tired of the reputation he had and decided he was going to use the knowledge he learned from his father to start his own black magic business. As he said in his testimony, "I aspire to follow in the footsteps of my father. I did not learn sorcery from anybody else but my father." And so thought, so done. Ahmad began his practice as a black magic healer and sorcerer in his community. He settled down with his 3 wives, who were also siblings, and became a cattle breeder. Over time, he shed the reputation he had before and became loved and respected by the people in the community. One fateful night, Ahmad had a dream of his then late father. This dream and what he decided to do with it single-handedly changed the course of and subsequently started the chain reaction that ended a lot of women's lives and devastated countless families in neighboring communities and his own. Ahmad had a dream in 1986 of his father telling him that in order for him to grow his magical powers and gain true invincibility, he had to drink the saliva of 70 dead women. And where to get these 70 dead women, his father did not specify, but Ahmad knew that that was going to take some time. Time he did not have the patience for, so he decided to speed up the process. Ahmad later disclosed in his confession, "My father did not specifically advise me to kill, so I was thinking it would take me ages to get to 70 women. So I took my own initiative to kill." Now, Ahmad's black magic practices generated quite a few female clientele, and unfortunately this became a consistent source of victims for his sick quest for power. The women would be lured to him with high hopes of improving their lives, but not even leave with the very lives they came with. Most of the women who came to him for help did so in secret, and Ahmad knew this. And this made linking him to the disappearances very difficult. Prior to the murders, he would charge them, then bring them to a cane field close by, which as a cattle breeder he had access to and knew all of the best places to hide dead bodies. After bringing his victims to what he thought at the time would be their final resting place, he would have them participate in the ritual by helping him dig a hole that would be deep enough to bury them up to their waist and cover their hands. After the victim was submerged in the hole, he would take advantage of the fact that they can't move, and he would strangle them with a cord or wire. After killing the victims, he would extract saliva from their mouths. Now, depending on which source you're reading, you'd get different answers to how he did this. Some sources say he would lick the saliva off their mouths as it dribbled out, and others say he would suck the saliva directly from the corpse's mouth. Drop a comment down below and let me know which one you think he did. After that, he would remove the victim's clothes to aid in decomposition. He'd extend the hole, make it wider and deeper to fit the whole body in. Then he would rebury the victim. He'd bury the victims with their head pointing towards his house, believing that this would give him more power. Then he'd leave the whole scene feeling one step closer to invincibility. Now, the detail that really gets me is the fact that he still charged the victims before killing them. That further plays into the theory that he not only did this for power, but for financial gain. Not only would he get the service charge, but he would also get whatever valuables the victim had on their person. This theory was proved later when, in his confessions, he said that he saw the murders as an easy way to make money. He explains further, "If I robbed people, I could get shot or put in jail. But this way, people come to me, I take their money, and then I kill them." He continued on with his sick quest for 11 years, claiming the lives of 42 victims, age ranging from just 11 to 40. At one point during his spree, he was going through a dry spell and he would hire sex workers and kill them to meet his quota. Much like the dream that started this whole thing, Ahmad's last victim, 21-year-old Sri Kamala Dewey, changed the trajectory of this whole situation with the help of a 15-year-old taxi driver, potentially saving the lives of many more women. On April 24, Kamala took a trip to come visit Ahmad in Rickshaw, where he resided at the time. The driver who took her there was a 15-year-old Andreas, who was advised to keep her visit a secret. She didn't even disclose where they were going until they were halfway there. Because it was late in the night, Andreas asked Kamala why she was visiting so late. Kamala lightly scolded him and told him to mind his business. The driver was paid, but no plans were made for a pickup. Turns out the reason for Kamala's visit to Ahmad was to help mend her relationship. She and her fiancé had a terrible fight before, and she wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to leave her for another woman. Through Ahmad's confession, we found out that Kamala was terrified that night, and she insisted on bringing one of his wives with her. This wasn't ideal to Ahmad, but he brought one of his wives with him anyway. They had to walk through a cemetery to get to the sugarcane plantation where he would perform the ritual. According to Ahmad, up until this point, none of his wives have ever been a part of his crimes. And in fact, none of them knew about it. I don't know about that one, bruv. Now, one wife, not knowing that her husband is a serial killer, fine. We've seen it happen before. Some people are just really good at hiding stuff. But 3 wives? Surely they had to see something. They had to see something. Women were disappearing from their community and neighboring communities as well. One of them had to have seen them, or a few of them, visit Ahmad and not leave. No questions were asked. No question were asked. There's no way they didn't even have the slightest inkling that something was going on. So he can't say that for a fact. At the scene of the crime, Ahmad said he had to constantly reassure Kamala that she was going to be okay, because she was rightfully so freaking out. It was the middle of the night and she was being put into a hole. After getting her into the hole where she had dirt covering her up to her waist and covering her hands, he strangled her to death, took her saliva and drank it. It's disgusting. With the help of his wife, he removed Kamala's clothing and put her back into the grave. On April 27, a strange amount of dirt was found in the cane field. 6 men and 2 hours later, the naked and decomposing body of a young woman was unearthed. The authorities were brought to the scene. The body was vaguely recognized as 21-year-old Sri Kamala Dewey, and her family were brought in to give a positive identification. Her mother said she could recognize that it was her daughter just by looking at her legs. She said, "It was like my worst nightmare had come to life. I refused to believe that it was her, but there she was, dead in front of me." This is hands down the worst call you can receive as a parent, to come and identify your dead child. And that must have been heavy. Bro, I've read this so many times. Why am I crying? Oh my god. I can't cry. My foundation was $48. Shortly after the discovery, the 15-year-old driver came forward with the information about her trip to visit Ahmad. And this information came as a surprise to investigators because Ahmad was there helping the other men digging up her body. And as it turns out, he heard the commotion and he was prompted to come and help them dig her up. Ahmad was brought in for questioning and his house was searched, where they found the belongings of Kamala and a few other missing women. He was then arrested on April 30th. During his 4-day interrogation, Ahmad confessed to killing 42 women and said all of their bodies were buried in the cane field. He also confessed his reason for killing these women: to gain power and to make quick money. The authorities giving more information about the case said because Kamala's body was fairly fresh, they were able to identify her. 4 other bodies were also identified shortly after Kamala's body. Their families came forward. There are bodies that simply could not be identified because of the state of decomposition. A lot of the bodies were reduced to just skull and bones. Considering the extent of decomposition in the bodies, it was hard to tell whether or not Ahmad had sexually assaulted any of these women, though Ahmad claimed that none of his murders were sexually motivated. After his arrest, other people came forward about missing villagers and wondered if Ahmad had anything to do with it, but it was hard to tell because they couldn't use DNA evidence back then. Ahmad and the wife that assisted him on the last murder were both sentenced to death. However, the wife got her sentence reduced to life imprisonment. After spending 11 years behind bars and converting to a major world religion, Ahmad was executed by firing squad in 2008. During one of his last interviews, he was quoted saying, "The black magic came from God. I don't have it anymore. I have repented. I hope I get a chance to live." So what do you guys think about this case? Do you think the wife should have gotten life imprisonment? And do you think death by firing squad was the right way to have him pay for his crimes? Here endeth a portion of my unholy word. Let's end it by saying, don't murder people. And also don't drink dead women's saliva, it's gross.